Tankers carrying oil, container ships carrying goods, LNG carriers carrying gas, all of them anchored, waiting, going nowhere. For weeks, the Strait of Hormuz, the waterway that carries 20% of the world's oil, has been effectively closed. Oil prices crossed $165 a barrel. Economists warned of global recession within months. Then, on April 7th, something happened. Iran announced the strait would reopen. But here is the part nobody expected. To pass through, ships must first pay Iran up to $2 million per ship, per crossing, paid in Chinese yuan or cryptocurrency. What is actually happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now is one of the most extraordinary power plays in the history of global trade. And it changes everything about how the world's most important waterway will work, forever. To understand Iran's toll system, you need to understand what happened when this war started. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military campaign against Iran. Strikes hit nuclear facilities, missile storage sites, naval bases, and military command centers. Within days, Iran responded by effectively closing the strait. According to S&P Global data, tanker transits fell by 97%, from over 100 crossings per day to just 4 per week. The impact on the global economy was immediate and severe. Oil prices surged past $165 per barrel. Asian economies that depend on Gulf oil for 80 to 90% of their energy were hit hardest. Even Europe felt the pressure within days. But Iran wasn't just closing the strait. It was using the closure to build something it had always wanted: formal control over the waterway. An Iranian lawmaker publicly stated, and this is a direct quote, "Now, because war has costs, naturally we must take transit fees from ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz." Iran's National Security Committee formally approved legislation to codify the toll system. The fees, up to $2 million per vessel, payment accepted in Chinese yuan or in cryptocurrency, including stablecoins and Bitcoin, the dollar specifically excluded. Here is something that makes this system even more extraordinary. Ship operators cannot simply pay the fee and pass through. Approval requires government-to-government negotiations. The government of the ship's registered country must negotiate directly with Tehran. If approved, the ship receives a secret one-time clearance code. As the vessel approaches the strait, it broadcasts the code on VHF radio. An IRGC patrol boat then appears and escorts the ship through, but not through the normal international shipping lane down the center of the strait. The approved route takes vessels through Iranian territorial waters, closer to Iran's coast. This serves two purposes for Iran. First, to verify the ship's identity and check paperwork. Second, and more importantly, to establish Iran's physical sovereignty over the transit. One of the most extraordinary developments in this crisis involves Pakistan. Iran agreed to allow Pakistani-flagged vessels to transit, but Pakistan only had a small number of flagged ships in the Gulf. So Pakistan began approaching major commodity traders worldwide, asking if their vessels would temporarily sail under a Pakistani flag to qualify. According to Lloyd's List Intelligence, 26 vessel transits have followed the route pre-approved under the IRGC toll booth system. Ships that don't have clearance codes are simply turned back. The IRGC even attacked at least one non-compliant Kuwaiti tanker as a warning to others. On the morning of April 7th, President Trump posted one of the most extreme ultimatums ever issued by an American president. He warned that if Iran did not reopen the Strait of Hormuz by 8 p.m. that evening, he would order the destruction of every power plant and every bridge in Iran. He said, and these are his exact words, "A whole civilization will die tonight." Inside Iran, civilians formed human chains around power plants. Iran's government issued curfews in major cities. The entire country braced for what appeared to be an imminent catastrophic strike. Then, Pakistan intervened. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, working alongside Pakistan's army chief, personally called President Trump and Iranian leadership in the final hours before the deadline. Sharif publicly posted on X, tagging Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Rubio, and Iranian leaders, asking Trump to extend his deadline by 2 weeks and asking Iran to open the strait as a goodwill gesture. Within hours of Trump's deadline, a ceasefire was announced. Trump agreed to suspend the bombing of Iran for 2 weeks. Iran agreed to allow passage through the strait, under coordination with its armed forces. Oil prices fell 13% within hours. Global markets surged. But here is the fascinating part. Both sides declared victory, simultaneously, over the exact same agreement. Trump wrote, "We have already met and exceeded all military objectives." Iran's Supreme National Security Council stated, "Nearly all war objectives have been achieved." Two completely different narratives. One fragile 2-week ceasefire. Here is the bigger picture that almost nobody is discussing. The 2-week ceasefire is not the story. The real story is what both sides are positioning for after the ceasefire ends. When a reporter asked Trump whether he would accept a deal where Iran charges toll fees, Trump responded with a question of his own. He said, "What about us charging tolls? I'd rather do that than let them have them. Why shouldn't we? We're the winner. We won." White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that Trump's idea of the U.S. earning revenue from the Strait would be discussed during the 2-week negotiation period. She said the immediate priority was reopening the Strait without any limitations, whether in the form of tolls or otherwise. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister stated publicly, after the war, the first step should be drafting a new protocol for the Strait of Hormuz. Naturally, this should be done between the countries that lie on both sides of the strait, Iran and Oman, not the United States, not the international community. International maritime law experts say Iran's toll system has a fundamental legal problem. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, known as UNCLOS, explicitly states no charge may be levied upon foreign ships by reason only of their passage. However, Iran is not a signatory to UNCLOS, and in a post-war world where Iran controls the coast, legal arguments may matter less than military reality. The financial stakes are staggering. At $2 million per tanker, with normal pre-war traffic levels, Iran could potentially earn up to $800 million per month from tolls alone. For comparison, Egypt earns between $700 and $800 million per month from the Suez Canal. Iran would be transforming a military choke point into a permanent revenue stream. For the Gulf Arab states, this situation creates a challenge unlike anything they have faced before. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have already been in discussions about accelerating their alternative pipeline capacity specifically to reduce dependence on the strait. Saudi Arabia's East-West pipeline can move 5 million barrels per day to the Red Sea. The UAE's Fujairah pipeline bypasses Iranian waters entirely. A senior energy researcher at Columbia University stated bluntly, "It is very clear Iran would not be able to operate a toll booth through the Strait of Hormuz." She added, "That's something that the GCC states, including the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Oman, are not going to accept and not going to tolerate." But the deeper question for Gulf states is what happens when the 2-week ceasefire ends. Iran has already shown it can effectively close the strait. It has established, in practice if not in law, a toll collection system. It has demanded international recognition of its sovereignty over the waterway as one of its 5 conditions for ending the war. Iran's 10-point peace proposal includes controlled passage through the Strait of Hormuz coordinated with Iran's armed forces, withdrawal of all U.S. combat forces from every base in the region, full sanctions relief and release of all Iranian assets frozen abroad, and full payment of Iran's war-related damages. The United States has not agreed to any of these terms yet. The 2-week ceasefire clock is now running. Here are the 3 most likely outcomes. Scenario 1. A full negotiated agreement reached in Islamabad. Iran gets partial sanctions relief. The U.S. gets a permanently open strait. The toll system is quietly dropped or limited to a symbolic level. This is the outcome markets want, but both sides have enormous domestic pressure against compromise. Scenario 2. The ceasefire is extended again and again. No full deal is reached, but the strait stays partially open under Iran's toll system. The world gradually accepts the new reality, because the alternative is worse. Iran's informal toll booth becomes a permanent fixture of global trade. This is actually the most likely short-term scenario. Scenario 3. The ceasefire collapses. Iran fails to fully reopen the strait. Trump resumes strikes. Oil prices push past $200 per barrel. The global recession that economists have been warning about becomes reality. This is the scenario every government on Earth is working to prevent. Nearly 2,000 ships, still waiting. A 2-week ceasefire. A fragile deal. A toll system that has already changed the rules. And a question that no one has answered yet: who will actually control the Strait of Hormuz when this war is over? Subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover every development the moment it happens. Tell us in the comments, do you think Iran's toll system will survive after the war?